After we sing this song, we'll partake the Lord's Supper.
We gather here in Jesus' name. His love is burning in our hearts like living flame. For through the loving Son, the Father makes us one. Come take the bread, come drink the wine, come share the feast for which we wait. Come take the bread, come drink the wine, come share the Lord.
When Jesus rode into Jerusalem that beautiful Sunday morning on the back of the donkey, the people kind of went a little wild. They were familiar with prophecy, and this was a fulfillment of a prophecy by the prophet Zechariah 500 years before. And they thought, and they already knew about Jesus, so they thought something's going to happen here. And so they threw off their clothes on the path, and they put branches down, palm branches, and they shouted, "Hosanna, Hosanna in the highest." And Jesus rode on into Jerusalem, but he did stop on the Mount of Olives, which is on the east side of Jerusalem. So he probably and it's a little higher up, so he got a good view of town and the temple, and it was there that he wept, as Luke says. And we don't know for sure if he was weeping about the people that hadn't accepted him into their lives, or if he was thinking about the destruction of the temple to come, or if he was weeping for himself, because he knew that his days were limited. And that's what I want us to think about this morning, is the thoughts that were going through Jesus' mind. I could say, try to put yourself in his footsteps, but we can't do that. There's no way. I mean, we all know we're going to die if he doesn't come back sooner. And that's just the way it is on earth. And, as we get a little older, we know that it's probably a little sooner than later, but we know that it's a fact of life. But we don't have to deal with it like Jesus did. And when he was sitting there on the Mount of Olives, heading into Jerusalem, he knew that he had less than a week to live. And so I'm just going to touch on a few of what I think to be more impressive moments in his week there in Jerusalem. And fortunately for him, too, him and his disciples, they had arrived a couple days earlier over in Bethany, which is about 2 miles east of Jerusalem, about a 40-minute walk into town. And they were staying with his good friend Lazarus and his sisters. I find it interesting that Lazarus is the guy that he raised from the dead, and here he's going to be dead shortly and getting raised himself. So, but anyhow, they got well taken care of. Martha and Mary, they both loved Jesus, and they both had different ways of showing it, but they did show him how much they loved him while he was there. So Monday rolls around, and they're on their walk back into Jerusalem from Lazarus' house, and I can imagine Jesus was probably starting to feel a little more edgy about things, and so he walks up to a fig tree thinking maybe he might get some fruit off, even though it's April, it's before the season of figs, and there's none on it. And so he says, "May no one ever eat from this tree again." And his disciples thought that was kind of interesting, and but they went on into Jerusalem, and then things got even more interesting because it had been 3 years since he was first there and kind of got a little more physical. But this time he did the same thing. He went up to the money changers' tables and he started tipping them over and turning the doves loose, and there was money and birds flying everywhere. And Jesus said, you know, this is my house of worship, and you've made it a den of thieves or robbers. And of course, the Pharisees were watching him real close, and they were just waiting for things like this to say they could convict him of blasphemy by saying that this is my house. I'm actually who I say I am, the Son of God. But so they're watching him, and they're taunting him, I guess you could say. They start asking him questions as he's been teaching there, and they say, so Jesus, by whose authority do you teach? And Jesus said, well, I'll tell you by whose authority if you answer me one question. From where did John's baptism come from, heaven or men? And they kind of talked back and forth a little bit, but they couldn't figure it out, so they couldn't answer him. And he told some more parables, and then they said to him, so Jesus, you know, is it right to pay taxes to Caesar? And Jesus says, show me a coin. And he says, whose picture and whose inscription is on that coin? And they said, Caesar's. And he said, give to Caesar what's due Caesar. Give to God what's due God. And that kind of shut him up again. But then they said, well, so what is, one of them said, what is the greatest commandment? And Jesus quoted Deuteronomy when he said to love your God with all your heart and all your soul and all your might. But then he added a little extra, and he said, love your neighbor as yourself. And that shut him up again. But I guess what really clinched it when their hatred for him, and they did, the ruling religious class, you know, the upper echelons of the Sadducees and Pharisees, he laid it on them pretty thick. But then when he said, you brood of vipers, they were ready to bite him, I think, because it was pretty common, or it was a common thought in that time that vipers were snakes that hatched their young inside their bodies, and their young ate their way out, thereby killing their parent. And Jesus was basically saying, you guys are a bunch of parent killers. And that was one of the lowest blows you could give to these Jews whose reverence for family was one of their basic stanchions of life. And but anyhow, he made it out of there that day, and they came back on Tuesday, and the fig tree was withered, and Jesus gave his disciples a little lesson in faith, and then they went on into town, and he taught some more, and they got through another day. They could have arrested him any time after what he did the day before by interrupting the commerce of the temple, but the people loved him, and he was using the crowd, I guess. Jesus was a very smart guy, and he had people around him all the time, and they knew that if the religious leaders knew that if they arrested him with all these people around, because from what I understand, hundreds of thousands of people came to Jerusalem for the Passover every year. It was one of their big feasts of the year, and of course it was a big money maker for the Pharisees and Caiaphas, the head of the Sanhedrin, the top Pharisee, because he sold all the lambs, thousands upon thousands of lambs, got his cut there. Plus, if you came from someplace like Africa or Syria or Turkey or Rome or someplace far away, and you had to exchange your money to get their money, shekels or shekels, however you want to say it, and that was very lucrative for the Pharisees and the religious leaders. So they liked Passover, and they didn't like anybody interfering with the way things usually went at Passover. But Jesus was throwing a big kink into things, and I think he pretty much rested up on Wednesday. But that was probably the night that Judas slipped away into town and found Caiaphas' house and cut the deal with Caiaphas for 30 pieces of silver, about 4 months' salary. Pretty good chunk of change, but not that much, to betray your friend. But Judas was kind of a schemer, it sounds like, and he thought, well, either Jesus is if he's the real Messiah, then it's not going to matter. He'll be able to get away from all this anyhow. But if not, well, then he's going to get killed, and it won't bother me. But they made the plan for him to identify the time and place for Caiaphas, and his temple guards to snatch Jesus. So the next day was Thursday, and they did go into town. Jesus sent a couple of disciples ahead. As you know, a lot of this is well-known information to everybody here. Maybe not everybody, but we're here to remember Jesus and what he did, and so I guess it doesn't hurt to review it a little bit. But he sent Peter and John into town to find a place to have the Last Supper, the Passover supper, and they found it and got everything arranged, and Jesus and the rest of them showed up, and they had quite the dinner. Jesus did give his disciples one last lesson in humility, and he washed their feet and told them it is better to serve than be served. And then he told them that one of them was going to betray him, and they got kind of worked up, asking, is it me, Lord? And they're kind of talking to each other, and John was sitting on one side, but Judas was sitting right next to him on the left side, and it was probably a little noisy in the room when Judas said, well, is it I, Lord? And he said, yep, do it quick. And he got up and left, and nobody paid too much attention. They thought, who knows, he might have been getting up to go to the bathroom, get some more food, whatever, but he went directly to Caiaphas' place and informed him what Jesus was going to be doing, because evidently they had plans of after dinner to go out to back down through the little valley of Kidron there on the east side, and up towards the Mount of Olives, where the Garden of Gethsemane is located, and that's where Jesus really started to feel the anguish and agony because he had less than a day to live. And it says in Luke that and being in agony, that he prayed even more earnestly. And his sweat was, as it were, like great drops of blood that fell to the ground. And that's a real thing. something that can happen in people. It's called hematidrosis. And it's a rare thing, but it's more common in men who are on death row, that they'll sweat blood out of their sweat glands shortly before they are executed. And so think about that. And so Jesus went back to his disciples, and it was getting late, and that's when Judas and the temple guard showed up and grabbed him, and you know, like I guess at the beginning of the century, the biggest kangaroo court ever was held, and it was religious political maneuverings, but they had to get the okay from the Romans, and you know, it's like it's hard to believe the cruelty and meanness that mankind can have towards other men, but